Hello and welcome to From the Nosebleeds, a podcast brought to you by myself, Walter Limbeck, and Jacob Wetzel. And Wetzel, let's get right into it. Bradley is on a 4-game skid right now. They're not playing their best basketball. They're scoring under 50 points a game in the stretch. If you take out that overtime game they had against Valpo, it's a lot closer to about 50 points a game. Not looking real good. What are your thoughts on Bradley right now?
Uh, my first thought is that I think at least my friends and I, probably you and some of the people you discussed Bradley hoops with, owe Nate Cannell and Daryl Brown our sincerest apologies. I think our guard play this year, you and I both talked about this. Our guard play is terrible this year compared to what it was last year. Obviously, having two senior experienced guys, and I think we owe them an apology simply because I think we thought Terry and Sean East were going to be able to come in here and replace them easily. We were pick up where we left off, never miss a beat, and I think we're really missing their play. Um, you look at some of these box scores and you see like it just seems like when you talk about bad guard play, what does that exactly mean? I mean, Sean East commits 4 to 5 turnovers a game, and I get it. He's got the ball, and as a former point guard, you have the ball in your hands a lot. It's inevitable you're going to turn the ball over, but it just seems like there's a lot of games where he turns the ball over. Terry Nolan, I mean, double overtime game, he had 20, but it doesn't seem like he's really producing in the way Nate Cannell did last year at the guard at that guard spot that he's replacing. Um, so guard plays terrible, and they're not rebounding. Like I mean, Nate would grab 6 rebounds a game last year. It felt like. So I think we're struggling to replace that, and then I think my other takeaway is I think just offensive production in general. I think Rink is still trying to figure it out how to produce offensively. I think right now it's easy for teams to say, you know, Eli's going to get his, but we're going to try to limit it the best we can. And you look at the box score. I mean, Terry Nolan had 20 points, but it seemed like it was like really just there at the end. He got all of his points. Sean East had 13. Doesn't feel like he had 13. Rink had 2. Rink had 0 points. Ville had 2 points, and Kingsby had 7. Hannah had 6. Jay Sean had 10. It just seems like the scoring, like it's easy for teams to key in on Child, double him without the threat of kicking it out and having a knockdown shooter like we had last year with Nate to hurt you. So just seems like offensively, you mentioned it with the low scoring games. Like we don't have that offensive firepower we had last year. They're not getting up and down and running as much, and they're just they're. I know there's a lot of turnover, but they're not the team they were last year. I think we thought they were going to be that team that they were last year, and if not better. And I think that's where at the point now where we've lost 4 in a row, we're realizing that, and it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch them lose 4 games in a row.
Yeah, so I'm going to point out a couple of stats from the last 4 games that kind of really caught my eyes. Um, so Bradley, while during this losing streak, they're shooting 43%, which is around what they're averaging on the year. However, they're shooting 25% from three. They're shooting 54% from the line, and they're averaging these numbers might be a little inflated because of the last game, but they're averaging almost 16 turnovers a game and almost 20 fouls a game in these last 4. So to me, I mean, I look at that, it's you're not hitting threes, you're not making your shots at the free throw line, and you're also not getting to the line enough. I mean, they're averaging like 12 attempts at the line while the other team's averaging close to 20. And then you turn it over too many times and you're committing too many fouls, allowing these guys to get to the line as often as they are. I mean, you look at the overtime game against Valpo, they had 38 attempts, but then you look at the game against Loyola, the last game, they got to the line 28 times. I mean, you just can't give the other team that many opportunities to cash in on free points. I mean, they're hitting their free throws better than we are, so it's causing a big difference. And I mean, on average, they're making about 10 more free throws per game in these last 4 than we are. So,
Yeah, like you look at the last game. So you played a double overtime game. You played 50 minutes worth of basketball, and Bradley shoots 17 free throws, two of which were a technical, I believe, or
mhm.
something like that, where Ring shot the two free throws and missed both of them. I mean, we got outscored 28-9 on the free throw line last night, and yeah, I mean it's and part of that I think is the guard play. Like I don't think we realized how many free throws Daryl and Nate shot last year. I don't like Terry when Terry was attacking the basket, he was either getting a layup or getting fouled or an offensive rebound. Like only good things happened when he attacked the rim. It seems like, but that's where like he's got to attack. Sean East has got to attack. You got to get these guards playing downhill. We that the offense they run is a lot of side pick and rolls. Where last year it was and trying to get the guy to turn the corner. Last year it was, last year end of the game. If we had Daryl Brown on the team this year, end of the game played this time, high ball screen, Eli and Daryl, let Daryl get downhill. If the guy helps off and Nate, kick it out to Nate for the three. You live with Nate shooting that three, Daryl getting to the rim, or Eli going for an offensive rebound. This year we didn't really have a go-to play. Terry took a terrible shot, but it's the same thing of that's what our offense has been. It's been these bad long three-pointers instead of guys coming off these screens, getting downhill, and 17 free throw attempts is what you have when you don't have guys getting downhill going for layups.
Yeah, and I mean, my one like knock on Wardle this year, like, because I understand most of this is the players. I think he's done a good job game plan and everything like that. But it seems like I've talked about this. It seems like when you get down the stretch, he's still trying to do that pick and roll. And it's just Sean East and Terry Nolan aren't as dynamic attacking the basket or off the pick and roll as Daryl Brown was. And then you don't have somebody who's a knockdown shooter. I mean, when you look right now, our best three-point shooter is Elijah Childs, and he's in that pick and roll. So you can't have that your best three-point shooter can't be the guy in the pick and roll. Because I mean, and not only that, he's your number four. You can't have your big being your best three-point shooter. And they do that down the stretch where they try and do those pick and rolls, but it's not working as effectively as it did last year. So I'd like to see them run more sets when they're in those late game situations. That's like my only issue with Wardle coaching wise. The rest of that, I think it's more on the players because I mean, the talent's there
Hmm.
and you see the difference between how they played in non conference and how they're playing right now. I think we're missing. I agree with you on like we're missing the guard play and everything, but I think right now I didn't think losing Ari Boya would be as big of a difference as it is. I think offensively, Rink is about the same level, but defensively, I think is where we really miss him. He's somebody who can block or three shots a game, and he's also going to get your rebounds just because he's so big and he takes up a lot of space down low. And I think we're missing that right now.
Yeah, I think Rink's not a guy right now that can play. He played 30 minutes last night, again, double overtime game, but he's not a guy that can play 30 minutes right now. He took one shot, one three-pointer, had 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 0 points. Like you're not getting any production out of
Mhm.
him. And so I agree. I think losing Boya has served a bigger hole for us because he's a good screen setter. He's a guy that dives every time, that puts pressure on a defense. I think, and to go to your point about Wardle, I last year it was easy. You just draw up a high pick and roll, spread the floor, kind of what NBA teams do, and you let your senior guys go make a play. I think this year the offense hasn't changed from what it was last year because Wardle looked at it and said, "We are getting talented guys. We shouldn't have to change our system when we have guys like Terry Nolan and Sean East coming in who can play in this system." So I don't fault him for that, but what I do fault is or not I guess what I should say is what I do think is a bigger problem is like I don't think we also realize we have one guy who's starting right now in Eli who's played more than 1 year of college basketball. Rink hasn't played college basketball until this year. Sean East played 1 year. Terry Nolan played 1 year at George Washington. Vile played 1 year last year. It's Eli and Jay Sean, the only guys on the team right now with more than 1 year of college basketball experience. Like I don't. That's the other thing. Like that's where I always find myself stopping myself and going, we've got a lot of young guys who came in to a championship level team and atmosphere and are expected to win. When Terry hasn't played basketball in a year, Sean East was a reserve last year for a team. Vile was honestly a reserve last year for like it's just we have guys who are still learning and going through these growing pains. Um, but I think at the same time it should be it just we don't have this guys we had last year that could go off script and make plays, figure it out in the course of the game. These guys are still learning. So I think that's a big challenge for Wardle and his staff to kind of figure that out of how do we help these guys learn by but also keep our championship level mentality that we've had the last few years.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that frustrates me, and I know it frustrates some other people that I've talked to, is how they looked in the non-conference, where you were in these big games down the stretch, and you take away South Dakota State shooting lights out against us. They played really well throughout the non-conference, not only offensively but also defensively. And then now it's like we got the conference. We lose McAdoo, we lose Boya, then we lose Jashawn, and now it seems like we're out of sorts. I know we just got Jashawn back, but you know, I I I find it hard that McAdoo and Boya were like that big of pieces that now we're completely a different team, it seems like. And that's what's frustrating is it doesn't seem like we should be that different of a team right now, but we are. And I mentioned it a little bit with the last four, how we're shooting. I think in non-conference play we shot close to 37, which is I looked at the last 3 years before this, and Bradley shot close to 37% every year from three. And so we shot that in the non conference, but now in conference play, we're shooting under 30%. And it's just frustrating that all of a sudden nobody can hit a shot when you need him to.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean part of it is the valley scouts each other very very well, and it's like it's teams know what you're going to do in the valley, and especially like we said where Wardle hasn't changed the offense from last year to this year. It's just the players have changed. But I mean, the bottom line is the offense has to improve, and it's because everything. The first thing I think it needs to improve really the most is defensive rebounding, because the defensive rebounding dictates what Bradley wants to do, which is get the rebound, get out and run. And I know we haven't been like severely out rebounded this year, but when you watch a game like last night where you give up some big ORs, teams are capitalizing on their offensive rebounds, but then on top of that, your guards aren't getting in there and rebound. When your guard gets in there and rebounds the ball, it's a bust out dribble. You're going. When the big gets the rebound, it's the point guard has to find their way to the big man, get the ball so you don't turn it over and then go. And um, but yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it comes down to you got to make shots. Vile cannot like Vile didn't attempt a 3-pointer last game. 50 minutes of basketball, didn't shoot a 3-pointer. He's Vile's a great player, but he has to be on the floor shooting threes. That's his game, and it's like things like that where you look at offensively and you say, why did this happen? What are we doing? It's things like that, and same thing with Rink, only taking one shot. How do you play 30 minutes and take one shot?
Yeah, I was diving deep into some stats over the last day, and I've been looking at a bunch of different things on the offensive side and defensive side with Bradley. Um, Everybody talks about the offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency when they talk about teams that can make runs, and kind of a prediction on how well a team can do from year to year. And I looked at two different sites. I looked at Ken Palm and then I looked at team rankings. They both have offensive and defensive efficiency ratings. And I was looking at Bradley. Their offensive efficiency is actually better than it was in 2019 and 18, but it's far worse than what it was last year. Last year, they were in the top 100 for offensive efficiency. This year, they're barely in the top 50 of teams, 50% top 50%, I should say, of teams in offensive efficiency. The defensive efficiency is about the same as it was the last 3 years when you look at the numbers. So it tells me that the offense, in my mind, needs to pick it up more. They need to be
Mhm.
more effective, be more efficient. I mean, Jashawn Henry, we know he's a very efficient player. Same with Elijah, but we need more people to step up and be able to be efficient. We can't just have two guys down low be efficient players. We need some guards to step up and have those efficient plays. And, those efficient scoring nights where, you take five threes, you hit at least two, and then you take maybe five more shots and they're all inside and you hit four. The thing I've noticed with Sean East is it feels like he drives to the lane and then he's looking to pass. He's not looking to score. And sometimes it's open when he drives in the lane. He can hit those little floaters, he could get a layup. And it seems like he's always trying to pass. And I want him to be a little more aggressive and take it to the rim like Daryl Brown did and
Mhm.
draw the contact, initiate the contact. And that's how you get to the line.
Yeah, yeah, it's uh I don't know. It's frustrating when you watch them. I think that's just the most frustrating thing is watching them play last year and then watching them play this year. I mean, it's and I get it, it's new players, but I mean, it's just like it's so night and day how different it is.
Well,
Uh,
and
I don't know.
it's new players, but the talent isn't extremely different.
Right.
You've got a deeper team than you had last year, like we've mentioned before. It's just the inexperience seems to be hurting us right now.
Yeah. I don't know. They got 5 games coming up here that are really going to be the I think the do or die for them to avoid playing on Thursday. Um, because 3 of the teams, obviously, you get Valpo again, but you play Southern Illinois, who's got one conference win, who's probably going to be playing on Thursday as well, a chance to keep them down there and you to get move up a little bit. I think they got to win one Indiana State, and then they got to sweep Southern Illinois at home, and then you essentially you have to beat Valpo at home. You have to win your home games. It's no different than any other year, but I think you have to go. You have to go four for five in the next 5 games. You have to win four. And if you do that, you're sitting there at 7-6, and then maybe now all of a sudden you're battling for the fourth or fifth seed, which is where Bradley seemed to have thrived the last few years. Is that 4 versus 5 seed? Um, but I mean, right now it's if we want to move in now to more talk about the Valley as a whole, it's Drake and Loyola's conference to lose right now. I mean, it's them two. Um, like those two teams are the two teams in the conference. I think there's no disputing that, no debating that, and I think it's going to be very interesting with those two teams because they are two completely different teams. Uh, Loyal, this is slow down 50s. Drake is speeded up 80s, and I think it'll be very interesting to see when those two teams play each other. I think those 2 games will be very very fun to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we both watched the two Drake games against Missouri State, and it was interesting to see in that first game, Missouri State in the first half was establishing themselves down low, and they were real physical, and Drake really had no answer for it. And then it came out in the second half, and they pushed the tempo a little more, and Missouri State wasn't really to establish itself down low, but that's where I feel like Loyola can take advantage in their two matchups with Drake is Cameron Crutwig and their other forwards that they have can establish themselves down low. And I just feel like Porter Moser's a better coach, and I feel like they're more talented as well all around than Missouri State. So those two games will be interesting because I feel like Loyola might jump out early in the first game, and I don't know if Drake could necessarily find itself back like they did against Missouri State. It's a bit ahead of ourselves, but again, those are the two teams right now in the Valley that are the best. And I think Drake made that very clear with how they played against Missouri State.
Yeah, I mean, that Missouri State Drake game, both games really. I thought Missouri State was there with them. Like they hung around with them, and they had every opportunity in that game. But I think the thing I came away from Drake was like, obviously with the way they play, four guards, high scoring, shoot a lot, like they're gonna have off nights, and it just seems like they have yet to really have a bad game. But then also they're deep. They go eight guys, nine guys. So someone has an off night, you rotate them out, and I mean they do a good job of getting to the rim, not letting themselves lose games by not shooting well on the three. So I mean they've kind of shown what they are, and then all the weaknesses of the way they play, they've kind of shored those up and not really allowed them to be weaknesses. Um, but I think you're onto something with the Loyola Drake matchup with Krutwig. Drake, I mean it's Krutwig didn't do much against Bradley, but he does enough to always have to know where he's at and know you always have to be conscious of how to defend him every single possession. And that's where I think Drake's small lineup is going to have a problem with that. And that's getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves. But I mean, they're a combined 14-1 in the Valley. Loyola has 2 wins at Bradley. Drake has 2 wins at Missouri State. Probably the two toughest places to play in the Valley outside of Loyola. And uh, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to come down to those two teams, and I think those are going to be two fun games.
Yeah, I mean, we are getting ahead of ourselves, but at the same time, you look at Drake's next five. They host Illinois State this weekend, 2 games. Then they go to Valpo next weekend for 2 games. And then they host UNI. So it's not exactly a grueling stretch before they get to Loyola. Those are 5 very winnable games, and they could be sitting at 11-0 going to Loyola, or excuse me, hosting Loyola. And then you look at Loyola on the opposite side. They've got 2 tough ones at Missouri State. We've talked about it a little bit before. It's always kind of tough to go down to Springfield. And to pick up 2 wins here like Drake did would be huge for Loyola. But then you get 2 at home against Evansville. Think you can handle those. So you're looking at it. Loyola might have one more loss. Drake very well could be undefeated. I mean, it is the biggest matchup of the Valley this year when you look at it. And I mean, Drake kind of ends on a bit of a grueling stretch when uh, you've got the Loyola games, the 2 Loyola games at home. Then you go to UNI, host Evansville, who's been a bit of a surprising team so far, and then you're at Bradley. So that's a tough 7 game stretch to end the season. But if you get to the Loyola game undefeated, all you need to do is win one more, and you've pretty much clinched a top 3 seed at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's those two teams. They're going to be competing against each other. Then I think it's right now everyone else is just racing for third. And I mean, it's Missouri State. Like I know they just lost 2 at Drake, but they really haven't looked great. They're always, I feel like, a mystery team. Indiana State has been up and down. Evansville's surprised people. Valpo's kind of hanging around. There's just a lot of kind of. It just seems like it's Drake, Loyola, then just some unknown mediocre teams right now that are kind of figuring it out. And I think when we get more into mid-February, towards the end of the schedule, I think we're really gonna kind of see a bigger disparity between the two teams and who's going to get third, because I think we're going to see 1, 2, 3. I mean, there could be pretty much every team probably but Illinois State and SIU may be competing for the 3 through 6 spots. You know, you could have one, two, three, four, five, 6 teams competing for a handful of spots, and I don't know. It seems like everyone underneath Loyola is just kind of in the same category right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think Missouri State has largely been lifted up by their forward Mosley so far. I mean, he's scoring 22 points a game.
Mhm.
Don't know if he can continue to keep that up. It always seems like most state has one go-to guy that they really rely heavily on. And if they have an off night, the whole team does, and they kind of struggle. Uh, they're like you said, they're always a mystery team. They one night they could show up and have an excellent game and beat one of the top teams. Next night they could go to Illinois State and lose. They're always up and down, so it's always kind of hard to know what you're going to get from them. And it always seems like, they're a team with the talent, but they can never pull it all the way through.
Mhm.
I like what Indiana State has done recently. They started off pretty poorly, but since then they've kind of found their groove, found their rhythm, and found their mojo. Because they started out 1-5 in conference play. Their one win being against Loyola, though, and since then they've won 4 straight. So it looks like they're figuring things out. Uh, Probably not a good sign for Bradley right now. Two teams going in opposite directions. One's won 4 in a row, the other's lost 4 in a row. But if Bradley can turn things around a little bit here, it'll be huge going the rest of the season. I agree with you again about the rest of the teams are kind of just figuring it out. So I think whoever finish is hot could definitely give Drake or Loyola problems. And Bradley's tend to finish hot the last few years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Like you look at the standings, and it's a lot of 500 sub 500 teams right now. That just I don't know. I think it's just also going to come down to with how the schedule, how you can play 2 games at one place right now. It's a lot of it's going to come down to who are you playing, and where at the end of the season. Because you look at Bradley, you get Drake at home for your last 2 games. Those could be huge games for Drake and for Bradley. Are you going to SIU, or are you getting SIU at home for the last 2 games? Like it's those kind of things that's going to come down to, because those could be big. You know, those could be big games if you get 2 home games at the end of the year against a bottom 4 team, and you need to win a game to solidify a spot. Um, I mean, I think it's just going to be a little more interesting than than it has been the last few years, just because of the different scheduling. Um, but I don't know. It's just seems like no one after Loyola has really been able to figure it out yet. So I think that's the biggest thing I'm interested in is who puts it together first. Seems like you said, Indiana State's kind of doing that right now. They've won 4 in a row. They even if they just go 1-1 against Bradley, they kind of keep their train moving and keep going. They go to 6-6, and now all of a sudden they're sitting in third. Um,
Yeah, and they've got the benefit too. I mean, they've already played 10 conference games. So I don't think they have to play another midweek game the rest of the year. I could be wrong. They might have one or two more midweek games. But they've kind of got the benefit of they've got some games in hand already. They've currently played the most games in the conference. So it's nice for them that their schedule is going to be pretty consistent. It's going to be, 2 every weekend from here until the tournament. So they've got that nice consistency going for them and they're able to, kind of rest their guys, get their guys healthy if they're a little dinged up as well. So I think that's something also to consider is who's playing the most games down the stretch because they could have some key injuries there. They could have a little bit of fatigue. Things like that could set in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that's a good point. It's definitely, and it very well could be a two bid league at the end when it's all said and done. I think that's what a lot of Valley folks are excited about is that we could see two teams in for the first time in a while. So I think personally I think I'd rather see I wouldn't mind seeing Drake finish the year strong, stay in the top 20 in the net rankings. Maybe Loyola wins the conference, and then you get two teams in to represent the Valley.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see the Valley get a little more. I mean, I think we've talked about this, and I've talked about it with other people the last few years. Getting the Valley back to where it was in the mid 2000s, where it was consistently a two bid league and had the respect of everyone, that would be a great spot for us to get to. With that being said, though, we will switch gears into an overlook at college basketball. If you give us one moment, we'll be right back with you.